And here she is. Let's say good morning to Attorney General Dana Nessel. Thanks so much for being here. Always appreciated. I want to start, it feels like I have a ton to talk to you about, but I want to start with the MEDC and the investigation into that corporation and Faye Baydoun. Your office recently launched that investigation. What specifically triggered it, and what potential charges could come down the line there?
Well, you know, as Attorney General, it is my job to make sure that state tax dollars are being used appropriately, that the money's not being embezzled or misappropriated in any way. Now, let's be clear, what we're seeing in state government pales in comparison to the massive corruption at the federal level. But again, we want to make sure that state tax dollars are used wisely, and normally they are. But in this particular set of circumstances, you know, this investigation actually was launched as a result of reports in the media about how this grant money was being utilized. And we have other cases where we've investigated earmarks or grants. And so we thought it was necessary to pursue this as well.
That Detroit News article you're referring to also pointed that it all came about after the governor, Gretchen Whitmer, was the one who pushed for this grant, and it was kind of in the late hours of a budget negotiation. If the investigation takes you toward the governor's office, could that also be part of this? Well,
look, as of this point, I will definitely say that the governor's not a target of this investigation, but we are deeply concerned about what we're seeing from the MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. This is a quasi-public, quasi-private agency that sort of operates outside the rules of normal state government. So I'll give you, for instance, we have a case involving the misappropriation of a grant that went through the Department of Health and Human Services. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, you know, DHHS, they were monitoring how the money was spent. They immediately notified us and the Auditor General and the Inspector General as soon as they saw that there was an issue. They, you know, cooperated in every portion of the investigation and now the prosecution. That's in stark contrast to the MEDC. You have money that gets funded through the Michigan Strategic Fund, then it goes to the MEDC. And this has happened for decades, starting with John Engler and his administration, where you have hundreds of millions of dollars, perhaps in a single budget year.
And sometimes people aren't keeping a close eye on it.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of what their methodology is in terms of regulation, seemingly, in terms of conflicts of interest, the fact that Faye Baydoun was a board member of the MEDC and then received this massive grant, the fact that there's very little oversight, and the fact that MEDC stonewalled our investigation into the, misappropriation of this money for over a year, and now is in court trying to block us from a valid search warrant that was executed upon the agency. It's all deeply troubling. And again, the vast majority of state money is appropriately utilized when there's an earmark or when it's appropriated. But money going to the MEDC has us deeply concerned, and each day we learn new things about this agency that lead me to believe that until there's better oversight, perhaps they shouldn't be receiving any state funds at all.
I know you say the governor's not a target of the investigation, but obviously it was her appointee, and you've criticized her recently for her trips to the White House. So I think many wonder, are you two at odds on this?
No, I wouldn't say that. Listen, this is my job, and I routinely investigate individuals, whether they're Democrats, whether they're Republicans, whether they're nonpartisan. When it comes to this type of criminal behavior, or I will say alleged criminal behavior, it is part of the work of our department. We have a public integrity division of the Department of Attorney General, and we take this job very seriously. We have seasoned investigators and prosecutors, and they're nonpartisan. They're just there to do their jobs, to make sure that the law is followed, and when it's violated, that, we're bringing charges.
We should point out the state did officially cancel that grant, and although it's been reported the governor hired a defense attorney for both the chief of staff and the MEDC staff. You mentioned federal corruption. Let me quickly jump to that. Since Donald Trump came back into office, 26 lawsuits, I believe, is the number that you've either signed on to or filed yourself against the president.
It's actually 29 at this
29
point.
now.
Yeah.
You never know by the day. Your critics would say this is classic weaponization of your office against someone you just don't agree with politically.
Well, I think if people are saying that, it's because they don't know the nature of these lawsuits. And the vast majority of this litigation, this is money that, tax dollars that were paid by Michigan residents or Michigan businesses, went to the federal government and was congressionally allocated to come back to Michigan for all kinds of important programming. And then the Trump administration withheld the money from the state of Michigan. And so these are for things, like the funding of our schools, roads, infrastructure, our libraries, public health grants. The list goes on and on. So we have now recovered over $1.6 billion in money that was illegally, unconstitutionally withheld from the state of Michigan. And even when I talk to Republicans in the legislature, they might not say this publicly, but privately they'll say to me, we're so glad that you were able to recover that money. We were counting on that money. And again, I want to make it clear to everyone, that's our money.
Yeah.
That's money that Michigan, taxpayers paid to the federal government.
Are these the funds that were said that are going to go directly back to the state, or at least promised by the administration, by bypassing, say, the Department of Education, for example? Or are these different funds?
It's a variety of funds.
Okay.
Some of it does involve the Department of Education, and that's been a number of our lawsuits. But, they've spanned across the spectrum of many different types of funding, including, FEMA, emergency, money for relief for when we have disasters.
Yeah.
We're talking about over $100 million that was illegally withheld from the state. We need that money. And again, Congress appropriated it to us. So the Trump administration can't just come in and say, we've decided unilaterally that Michigan's not going to get that money.
Let me grab a couple other topics here. Line 5 pipeline, where your office has, where does your office stand right now on possibly shutting down Line 5?
Well, we still have a case that is pending in the Ingham County Circuit Court before Judge Jamo and motions for summary judgment there. We're waiting to see whether or not there's going to be a stay that's issued on the Circuit Court making a decision on that, because now a petition of certiorari has been granted by the United States Supreme Court on a related issue, not the exact same issue, but a related issue. So we're waiting to see if that'll move forward. But I will say this, the one thing I will give Enbridge credit for, I don't give them credit for trying to protect the Great Lakes or caring much about the safety, economic security of the state of Michigan, but I will give them credit for their stalling tactics. And I filed the case in 2019, and we don't even have a decision yet from a circuit court judge in this matter, which is of course one of the lower courts, expecting that this will of course go up to an appeal later.
People think it would explode our price at the pump, though, if it does get shut down one day. Is that not a concern?
No, not at all. And in fact, one of the first things that the governor did when she took office is to commission a study specifically on how those costs would be absorbed, what, for the same amount of energy that goes through Line 5, how we would make up for it. And they found that there was practically no price difference at all. So we know that's not true.
I want to talk about something you've talked about in the past. You fought consistently against the utilities, DTE, and consumers when it comes to price hike. The Detroit News reporting this week, the governor's newest appointee to the MPSC, Shaquilla Myers, is being called a victory for the utilities because previously she has privately, according to sources with the Detroit News, fought to help those utilities. Does that appointment worry you?
It's a concern to me. It's a concern because she replaced a board member who we thought cared deeply about consumers and also about environmental concerns. We know that there was a lot of proposed legislation when Joe Tate was Speaker that would have held the utilities accountable and would have made sure that you couldn't see this endless escalation year after year after year.
Can you answer in 5 seconds if you're going to run for a new office after next year?
No, I can't answer that question.
Oh, I thought we almost had an answer.
Listen, the job I have right now is the most important job I could be doing. And I'm concerned about doing anything that interferes with me doing my day job. But
So we have to wait and see.
You'll have to wait and see.
All right. Attorney General Dana Nessel, thank you. It's always a good time to talk to you. We're coming right back with more Flashpoint after this.